This week, Shamoon disk wiping. An embedded device manufacturer is releasing a bug bounty program. No way we'll be able to keep a straight face when we talk about that. Our Geek Squad techs working for the FBI. Edge browser exploits. The Hello Kitty will be talked about in a light that relates to security, actually, as well as ransomware in a popular database software, and the fridge who loved me. All that and more in this edition of Hack Naked News. This is a Security Weekly production.
This episode of Hack Naked News is brought to you by IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Access over 2,000 hours of up-to-date, high-quality video content live and on demand via Chromecast, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, PC, or your mobile device. IT Pro TV's premium membership grants access to all courses, transcripts, virtual machine labs, and transcender practice exams. Corporate and group pricing are available. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the life of your account, visit itpro.tv/hacknaked and use the code HN30. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending these assets? Have you penetration tested them? Start 2017 by taking a proactive approach to your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to see how they can help you sleep better at night. Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous security monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. Logarithm's Netmon Freemium delivers real-time network visibility to quickly identify emerging threats in your IT environment. Netmon Freemium is a free commercial-grade network forensics and traffic analytics solution. You can use Netmon Freemium's powerful capabilities to search against all of observed network traffic, identify abnormal traffic patterns and application usage, and quickly analyze full packet captures. Take the first step towards real-time network visibility. Visit logarithm.com/freemium to learn more and download it today. Has your network been breached? Cybereason can help you answer this question. Cybereason products hunt for threats within your network and eliminate them in real time. To Cybereason, real time means within seconds. Founded by former military hackers who don't play by the rules, they've built this experience into their platform. Harness ingenuity and imagination, not just code, to defeat hackers. Cybereason. Disrupt the adversary and let the hunt begin.
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Hack Naked News. This is episode 106, and it's January 11th, 2017. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. I've got a co-host here with me, Doug White, the Director of Cybersecurity for Roger Williams University, is here with me today to talk about the security news. This is great.
Yeah, what are you going to do? It's like it's always a pleasure to be here, Paul. I'm surprised you keep having me back. But,
well, we've got some fun stories to talk about. First, just a quick announcement from itpro.tv. New membership level is being announced or enacted on February 1st. All current premium members as of February 1st will be granted the highest membership level available. Make sure you go to itpro.tv/hacknaked and use the discount code HN30 to save 30% off for life, which is awesome. So I want to get right into the stories. This first one, Doug, is the Shamoon, which was the Saudi Arabian malware, right? That was attacking, right. Was it nuclear power plants in Saudi Arabia?
After nuclear power plants, which is always exciting.
Yes, and that now it supports virtual desktops and destroys them.
Yep.
As if malware for a long time has been able to detect whether it's being run in a virtual machine.
Right.
And I'm sure this isn't the first malware to say, oh, I'm running in a virtual machine, so either let me self-destruct or maybe I just destroy everything when I'm in a virtual desktop.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people have been trying for a while to develop tools that would not only run in virtual machines undetected and fool themselves that they're not in virtual machines, but also that could maybe break out of that shell, because that's long been this sort of holy grail of hacking, is like, can you break that shell? Because you break all these other root shells in the past, but now could you break out of this virtual box and get onto the bare metal?
Right.
And that would be really, really cool and bad.
You know, for a long time ago, there was Ed Scotus's firm was able to talk about it publicly. Was contracted to detect virtual machine escaping. And I think if several years ago they're willing to make the investment in security research to know that that's happening, they're probably still doing that today. Like, I don't think they just stopped out, 6 or 7 years ago, right? Like, they're continuing that research. Although it is interesting that it can just wipe out a virtual. It's interesting how specific malware has gotten over the years. And, we talk about Stuxnet as kind of the pinnacle of that.
Right.
But it is getting very, very specific in what it does, in what the ransomware is ransomware. We got a story about MongoDB. Like, they're being very selective on. I mean, you remember when malware first came out. Like, what would it do? Like, oh, hey, if you put a floppy in, we're just going to overwrite your master boot record. Very generic. When viruses and malware. Now they're very, very specific.
I think that's reflective of the state of the industry, though, because there is so much very targeted responseware, or whatever you want to call it, to deal with these things. So you have to get more targeted, because these generic signatures, if this just does something, like the very first thing I saw come out to stop generic malware was just antivirus that didn't have a signature. It just watched for behaviors. So somebody who issues format C: or format A:, that immediately got flagged and stopped, at the system level, to try to prevent that stuff from going on. So as all the malware got really specific, you got to have specific response, and vice versa. So trying to build things that target virtual desktops, I mean, so much of that's in use, so why not? And I mean, and we see that. I was trying to do some of that not too long ago, because I had a piece of legitimate software that wouldn't run on a virtual desktop because they don't want you to do it. And I was trying to tweak it so that it wouldn't, I was trying to find what are the little signatures that tell it it's in the virtual desktop, so I could eliminate those signatures. And I was closing ports, and I was doing other things to it to just try to stop it from doing that. So if I was writing malware, I'm going to do that too, and try to cut that down.
You used to be able to profile the devices, because all the device drivers are virtual. So there used to be, and I don't know if that's gotten any better over time.
Well, I know that a lot of them have started, they've started renaming their device drivers. You'll see like strange names on your device drivers when you run Linux in a virtual machine, because they, ETH0 at a certain driver gets detected as VMware. And so all these companies don't want you running it in virtual machines, because you can distribute it that way too, and which would be a violation.
Yes, of the license.
But so I mean, all the virtualized stuff is trying to limit your ability to do that. The malware is trying to not detect it. So it's a complicated thing.
So what's not complicated is getting paid for a bug bounty, because Netgear has issued a bug bounty. Now, I don't want to poo-poo it so much. Industry experts such as H.D. Moore are saying this is a step in the right direction. Largely, I agree. I'm a little concerned for Netgear's bank account because of their track record. Now, they are limiting which platforms that you can do this on. And some of the concerns, and us as security people are always like, well, we poke holes in everything, right? They're like, well, what about every rebranded Netgear device that's out there being distributed by ISPs? Largely those, from what I've discovered, are not in scope. This actually is a bug crowd based bug bounty. And I think, on a positive side, yes, I think it's a great step in the right direction. So the Aereo series, the Nighthawk series, and the Orbi series, select models of each, firmware, web management are in play for all of them. And then for the Aereo series, client apps and cloud infrastructure are in play. $15,000 is the top unauthorized access to Netgear Cloud Storage. Remote unauthorized access also gets you $15,000, and it goes all the way down to $150 for open redirection, which sounds kind of dirty, but
everything sounds dirty.
It does. It does.
I like the idea. I'm a fan, because I think it's a good idea to make it to give rewards so people find these things, to make it a little more structured. But I also agree with you that it can be a big problem with your bank account if you are you just limit it, though, because it kind of becomes a beta hardware sort of model. And that means it's open. That means the bugs are going to get found because people are being encouraged to go right at that and get those bugs found. And I would like to see all those holes closed. And so why not? But you got to be careful. I'd like to see more,
but I think this is a model for other embedded device manufacturers, especially ones making those home firewalls and routers that are in everyone's homes. To Belkin and Linksys, if they all started doing bug bounty programs like this, eventually we're going to improve the state of the code in all of them. So
and so many of those devices are sitting around out there for so long because people, like I have a friend and he's sitting there with a 54G.
Yeah.
That thing's been sitting there for 10 years.
Right.
Okay, cool. But he's not going to chase these bugs down. So if there are security flaws, he's going to get hit with them.
And that's interesting because one of the stipulations is issues must be submitted using the latest software version, which means you have to find the bugs in the latest firmware.
Well, otherwise they are going to go bankrupt. If you say, pick a version.
And that's an issue with the industry that this isn't addressing. However, still, while limited in scope, it is a positive light being shined on the security of embedded devices and IoT devices. So I think it's super important for that reason.
And I think it'll generate a good response. I mean, you put some bucks behind it, and people are going to go crazy trying to find those big hits so that they can get that big prize.
I saw it. I was like, wow, can I just put my whole schedule on hold and just start reverse engineering firmware?
I know. Call the day and say I quit.
We were just talking about economic models and balancing your business.
Where's the bugs?
It's like, well, I know how quickly I found bugs that are remote access bugs in firmware before. This is $15,000. Like, if that's a couple of hours of my time, that's pretty good.
You bet.
Pretty good.
So
now it may take you a couple hours to find it. You still, I think with BugCrowd would have to be registered with them. There's an approval. There's a process, right? They would. I think BugCrowd is one of the companies that has to vet. Like if you and I were to go do it, they'd have to vet Paul and Doug and say, yes, you can be part of this, and then we would have to follow a process to submit that bug, in waiting and going back and forth, and they have to verify it and all that stuff. So there is a process.
There could be a business around that. I mean, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to hire the best bug hunters I can find, and
go and submit to every.
And we're going to do an ROI on these bugs, and you go 15,000. We might get that one, so we're going to skip it, but we'll do this other one that's 12,000 because that's a good one.
Put a team of 4 people, 5 people.
Yeah, and I got to our 104 people. If you go, we'll get to the Chinese guys, and we'll just have a warehouse in Shanghai full of people sitting there going, work, and all of a sudden
they already have a bank of exploits and vulnerabilities.
And so why not make money off of it at the same time? We keep the good ones to ourselves, or go in and try to prevent other people from doing it.
So, other than the obvious holes, I think it is a good thing. And I like to see them partnered with someone like a BugCrowd to formalize the process. I think those are smart moves.
I think that's a good move.
So, this one is very interesting. The article isn't very well written, to be honest with you. I
like this one.
A lot of the articles I'm reading, it seems like after covering this industry for 11, almost going on 12 years now, the quality of articles being written about security have gone down. I don't know if that's because more people are writing without the appropriate skills or just the internet has enabled more people to write. And the quality of writing I'm really struggling with. A lot of regurgitating of content and not very well written. And not a lot of insight. Right. Which I guess is where we come in.
Partially it's speed and cost reduction, too, because, if you go back to the 50s on newspaper articles, you got an editor that's reading everything. You got a 24-hour cycle or whatever to get this stuff together. Yeah. Now you've got 2 minutes to get this on the internet before somebody else has it on the internet. Yep. So, and you got to, and the material is more complicated. So you're having to bring people like me and you in to write these stories because we can't just farm it out to a good writer. We have other people writing it, and I don't have any time to edit it. So it's just like, get it out there and don't worry about it. And hey, it's still better than
this one's right in your wheelhouse, Doug.
So, it is, I know.
Basically, it's been uncovered in an ongoing case. So someone has been is on trial or is going to be on trial for having child pornography. But the way it was discovered was the FBI, according to the article, and I'm sure there's maybe public record of the accusation at this point, right, is saying that a Best Buy Geek Squad employee was paid, $500 to look for child pornography on the computers that were being serviced, either in the home or in the place of business. Now, while that on the surface I found was interesting, but what the article went on to state was these files existed in unallocated space, which and you are the expert on this more so than myself, but that tells me that if I go buy a used computer, someone had formatted it once, like we talked about on the show on Paul Security Weekly last week. Someone formats it once, then I install the operating system. That leaves a whole bunch of space that hasn't been overwritten, right. That could have files that can be recovered that could be child pornography from the previous owner, right? Is that your assessment?
That's absolutely my assessment, and that's your defense in court, is that you have to tie this to me. So, but it also means you wipe your drives when you buy something new. If you buy used equipment, wipe the drives and make sure that stuff's not on there. But yeah, absolutely, it's a scary thing if you aren't doing that kind of stuff, because you could have whole partitions laying on a hard drive. I've seen it before, where somebody reused a drive and there's a whole partition that somebody deleted. Because if you go delete a partition, you would have to hard wipe the drive. You can't even format it. You can't even see it. Windows won't even know it's there. I mean, you can look for it, but if you don't know what you're looking for, good luck, and it could be laying out there and somebody had 10,000 illegal pictures laying there. And so now them tying you to that, that's where you, depends on who's got the better expert.
But also, elite search and seizure, Fourth Amendment? Did I get that?
Fourth Amendment, yeah.
Fourth Amendment, is that going to get thrown out in court because of that? I mean, can law enforcement, without going to get a warrant, can they enable a non-law enforcement person to look for stuff?
Well, it depends.
If there's a case established.
Well, the way I read this story when I read it was that employees were phoning in tips and getting paid. So this was a tip line. So they're getting an award for calling. So this is just like I look out the window and I see a guy robbing the diner across the street, and I call the FBI and I say, I saw the guy's license plate is this. Okay, that's perfectly legit. So they're not an officer of the court. They're not acting as an officer of the court or whatever. Now, a minute ago, and I don't remember, you said that the FBI was asking them to do this. Now, if the FBI, in my opinion, if the FBI was asking Geek Squad employees to examine people's equipment, I don't know about that. That's starting to sound pretty fishy to me, because that gets into what's called the doctrine of plain sight. So this is, if the FBI walks in here right now and they see a box of Cuban cigars sitting on the countertop, that's plain sight. We can get arrested for it. If they walk in here and start searching the place, that's another whole matter, and that gets into this, you need a warrant. So same thing with the laptop. If the Geek Squad employee, if you willingly give the Geek Squad employee your laptop, they're looking at it and they see stuff, they go, wow, it's illegal material. They're in some ways even obligated to report it. I mean, as a forensic examiner, I would have to report it. That's part of my sacred oath, to John Mellon and all that.
I've done the Dune investigations at university.
Exactly.
I've actually had to do that.
And that's our company policy. So we go to a client, we say, if we find illegal material and when we're doing this financial, I got to turn this in. And then I've had people turn me down for work for that, because they said, oh, we don't want you doing it. I'm like, well, so what are you guys up to?
So you're have something to hide. Yeah.
So if the FBI was asking them to examine a machine, I would expect it's like a wiretap. They would really need a warrant. I mean, I'm not an attorney, so we'll have to throw the AG with that. But the FBI should theoretically have a warrant that says examine Doug's computer when he brings it in. If we get lucky and Doug White brings his laptop in here, we want you guys to go through it and see what you find, because that's not exactly plain sight. They're asking it to be done, so it's a sort of snaky business depending on how it was asked and what.
Yep, no, that's a good analysis. Couple of exploits for the new Microsoft. I guess it's not really. New is kind of a relative term, right? When you compare it to IE6, right? Edge is new.
Yeah, so, exactly.
And there's probably some people still running IE6, so we will call it new. Some exploits have been integrated into the Sundown exploit kit for this browser. So. When I think of, I actually want to do a full segment for enterprise security on browser security and where the state of that is today. I think organizations still very much need a strategy. However, I also feel like a lot of organizations have just adopted endpoint protection and not really gone in and hardened the browser portion of it, and are very afraid to patch it, are very afraid to adopt a new browser in fear of what might break, and are afraid to do a Firefox or a Google even still today because they're difficult to manage and control, whereas Microsoft's is built into the operating system.
I completely agree, and a lot of organizations wouldn't even let you install a third party because they can't vet those things, even when they're running things that maybe aren't so well vetted to start with.
Yep.
A lot of companies I work for have, deep freeze policies on all laptops. You're not installing Firefox or Chrome, even if you go back and say, there's a huge problem here. There's an exploit. I know it's there. We're running an old version of Explorer. We're running IE6, we're running IE5 or whatever. They're going to say, yeah, but until we have a full patch plan, a full rollout plan, no dice, you're not doing it. And so those kind of exploits can just lay there and haunt you. I mean, but I do think a lot of companies run it because it's in the operating system, and they sort of have a, comfort level with that.
Right.
And then, truthfully, it becomes a policy issue. If you do say, well, you can install your own browser. Okay, so now somebody installs some whacked-out browser from who knows where, or they write their own, it's like, because that would
most of the browsers will auto-update, but usually you have to restart them to do that. And Firefox and Chrome, in my experience, don't tell you that you have to restart.
Right.
Either that or I'm restarting them before I hit that timer, but I've never had Firefox or Chrome ask me.
I don't remember ever having Chrome. I haven't used Firefox in a while, but Chrome, I don't remember it saying you need to restart now.
Yeah.
It's just assuming.
I've just habit now. I go in and check my version, and if there's an update, I restart the browser and install it. So kind of interesting, especially as we move to the cloud and cloud-based applications, where hopefully the reliance on the browser becomes less and less.
Right.
However, most organizations can't just say, hey, you know what, we're dropping all of our applications we built ourselves and we're moving to the cloud. Not going to happen.
No. Right.
Easier said than done. The Hello Kitty database of 3.3 million breached credentials surfaces. I mean, really, the only reason I added this is because Hello Kitty was in the title, and I thought, of all the breaches out there, we should at least talk about Hello Kitty because I don't know.
Why not?
I think your name was in there, Doug, when I searched the database.
I'm sure I have a Hello Kitty account.
That's right. I don't even know, what does a Hello Kitty account get you?
Access to Hello Kitty, probably. You have children. I had a little girl. We had all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We had Club Penguin and all kinds of things.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, for me, it's like, I think these are very target-rich environments, to be honest, because one, you've got parents creating things on stuff they don't use. You've got little kids creating accounts, and so there's a lot of like high-profile, target-rich sort of stuff there. And I would love to, I would love to come at your bank account with something where you don't set it up correctly and you used your same password in Hello Kitty and you tied it to your email. It's a great target threat vector to really go at people, and it's going to be something they're setting up while they got a 3-year-old on their lap, so they're not sitting there thinking about heavy security. They're going, oh, it's Hello Kitty, come on.
Well, and just to get someone in that age range to start understanding passwords. In that age range, depending on where they're at, they might not be able to read yet. So getting them into a
strong password environment.
That's a prerequisite to really starting to understand the password. They have to understand the alphabet and how to read and form words. And then if you want a passphrase, they have to understand sentences, which comes later. So it is difficult. I think in that case, probably for children in elementary school or prior that are still learning the language, some kind of biometric is probably the best form of authentication for that age group, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, in tying that back, maybe the house passwords are tied to this too. The kids got an account because they have a Netflix account or whatever.
Right.
And so mom and dad let the kid create their Hello Kitty account. That same account's being used on Netflix. I got to weigh in. And maybe it doesn't get me too far, but it gets me somewhere. And the minute you get in, you're in. So
unsalted SHA-1 hash passwords.
Yeah. So
I mean, better than MD5, but
yeah, but it's still going to be cracked pretty quick. And
unsalted.
We're going to dump. Yeah, we're going to.
Unsalted means I can Google search for all of those hash passwords.
And I can dump that on my cracking machine and let it sit there and churn on these 3 million. And see how many easy hits I get too. And
unsalted means I can build a dictionary pretty easily too.
And it's target rich.
Yep,
I like it.
So MongoDB database is being attacked with ransomware. This just hit the news wire, this week. Obviously, it's been going on for a while. MongoDB is a target largely because the default installation has always been pretty weak when it comes to security. People are building these gigantic databases, and it's interesting. I find it interesting. The point in this story is that the payout is not because of the value of the data on the open market. It's the value of the data to the data holder, and holding it ransom is a better payout for the attacker than stealing the information and selling it on the open market.
I completely agree, and I mean you're a lot more desperate there.
Yeah.
And plus you're dealing. So I call the CEO of a company who had what I call a growing pains problem. So I started off with this database. It was small. Over the last 5 years, it's grown into a gigantic customer mess database, and now it's our whole business is tied into this database, and I call the CEO and say, I want $50,000.
Right.
And you can scale it. So as an attacker, you can look at the size of the business, you can look at their SEC filing or whatever,
Yeah.
and you can figure out how much money to ask for because I know exactly what you're worth, I know how much business you're doing, and I know what this database is worth to you. So it's like, okay, I can ask one guy for $5,000, one guy for $50,000.
Yep.
And that's better than just selling stuff randomly on the black market.
Well, it's easier too because then there's no trail of it on the black market.
No, and I know who to call.
Yeah.
Your number's on the website. So, it's like I got the number right up front. I call you up and I say, hey, I'd like a meeting and we would discuss your database and would you like it back?
So I added this last article because it was pretty poorly written and a lot of regurgitated content. And essentially, they're talking about all the new devices that came out at CES and the security behind them. Eventually, they get to the point where they're picking on the refrigerator. Now, LG has a new refrigerator. Essentially, this is the same technology that Samsung has released at previous CES conferences and had on the market for a while. It affords you, this one is new, is a couple of new pieces of functionality. But essentially, right, your refrigerator we used to have ice boxes way back in the day, right? Then we had compressor-based refrigerators that just kept things cold. And when the biggest technological advance in a refrigerator previous to these, and ones from Samsung, were when you open the door, the light goes on. When you shut the door, we're pretty sure that the light goes off. There was no way to verify.
Not at the time.
Yeah.
You could put a
push that little button that
you could put a drone in there now and watch what's really happening.
Yeah. So now technology has advanced such that companies are actually creating an experience around the refrigerator, touting the kitchen as a central hub in the house, and they're giving you features such as inside the refrigerator there's a camera. It hooks to your smartphone app, so when you're at the market, you can see what's in your refrigerator and see if you're low on milk. You can smart tag items in your fridge so that when they run out, it automatically makes a shopping list for you. There is a tablet or some kind of user computer-based interface on the refrigerator. Some models allow you to leave notes.
Yep.
This model actually has, they licensed Alexa from Amazon, and they put, so now you can talk to your refrigerator.
Yeah, you could say,
talk to your refrigerator.
Alexa, look in the refrigerator and see if we need eggs, and then have Amazon deliver some with a drone.
So one good point that I think he took from someone else for this article, but the one good point that he had was about Amazon's business model as respect. Amazon will let you license Alexa for next to nothing or free because they're making money on selling stuff. So the more places that Alexa is, the better. Whereas Google, their business model is more tightly wound to a smartphone of some kind. So their business model is a little different.
And Alexa can be just amazingly biased, So it's like, were they going to really order it from somebody else besides who Amazon wants them to? Of course not.
Well, and if you've used the Echo and the Alexa ecosystem, like, don't expect to get anything out of Google. Like, I mean, they obviously have completely separated themselves from Google. My Google Music, the power of Google Search is noticeably missing from from the Alexa platform. However, if you need to buy stuff, like, Alexa's pretty good at that.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you can literally just say almost anything and say, I need a new headset, and it's like, what kind of headset would you want?
The Google Now, is that the device they're calling it? I think it's called Google Now. They say is actually a little better.
That's what I've heard. I haven't tried that one.
I haven't tried. I gotta, I'm going to have to buy one so we can talk more about it on the shows.
It would be cool.
It would be cool.
I got a
and
reason.
Interfacing with all those Google things. However, back to the refrigerator, they said that there's privacy issues, and they didn't delve into exactly what those privacy issues are. And that ties a lot, I think, to health insurance. If this data that is now being collected based on your refrigerator is being sold to health insurance companies, it is also a privacy violation in that if you can monitor people's activities around their diet, you can surmise health issues, which could be a potential HIPAA violation as well. So I think that the privacy issues they described just didn't have enough detail in this article, and I wanted to bring those back because I've spent time thinking about it.
I think there's a whole bunch of issues like that come out. I wish I could think. I was trying to think of it just now. There was an old sci-fi story about people in the future, and only certain people are going to be allowed to survive because they wouldn't insure people that had ever had bad habits.
Right.
And so people get to this point in their life and they need medical care and they're not being given it because of the habits like cigars or whatever that they did.
Cheeseburgers or something,
And
yeah.
I think that kind of stuff is not clearly regulated at this point. So if LG decides that they're going to sell this to your insurance company and your insurance company says, wow, you sure did buy a lot of cheese. You know, it's
Yeah.
like you seem to consist on a
Exactly.
diet of cheese and bourbon. You put bourbon in the refrigerator? Really? You know, you're going to have a kind of an issue, and the insurer may say, you know, we're not going to, your policy price is going to way up because of your dietary habits. And since they could even see who was getting things out of the refrigerator, like, did you really reach for heavy cream instead of skim milk? You know, kind of stuff. There's a lot of real issues there, and you know, that stuff worries me a little bit. And I'm not a big privacy person because I'm so boring. I don't really think anybody would even care. But I think it's a huge issue as a society that we're going to have to deal with. And of course, then it all turns into, could it be hacked? Can somebody steal
That's
this?
exactly where I was going is we're talking about legitimate purposes and selling data legitimately. What happens when attackers break in and are leaking this information?
And again, it's back to IoT. And if they come in through the thermostat and get into the refrigerator and they just dumped all your health data and they start selling that on the black market, there's probably insurers that would go on the black market and buy data about potential customers.
We need a bug bounty for your refrigerators. That's it.
There we go. I like it. Maybe LG should jump into that.
That's right. You just fill them with beer and we're good. Or bourbon.
Well, you can
fill them with bourbon and send them to us. We'll find all the security vulnerabilities
I got it.
for
You have a decoy refrigerator. So now I buy one LG refrigerator that I put in my kitchen. I keep
all
it
the healthy
filled
stuff.
with celery and chia
soy milk
seeds and
and
soy milk and all this great stuff. And then down in the basement, I got like a refrigerator, like an old school ice box full of bacon. You know, it's just like that's bacon and beer.
bourbon.
Yeah, bacon, bourbon, and beer. The 3 B's of a good life.
Dunk my bacon right in the bourbon.
Yeah, I like it. And then they never see it unless they have little drones hovering around your house.
That's right.
What's he eating? Did that come out? Is that soy milk? And it's like, yeah, baby.
That was a great way to end the show. Doug, thank you very much for appearing on
As ever.
Hack Naked News. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see everyone next week.